Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the City Planning Public Hearing. Madam Secretary, please begin.
Good morning. This is the City Planning Commission public meeting held in Spector Hall, 22 Reade Street. Today is Wednesday, February 19, 2014. As a courtesy during the proceedings, we ask that you please turn off all cell phones and beepers. All speakers should fill out a speaker's card at the desk outside of Spector Hall. In addition, we ask that you please, those providing testimony, please identify yourself, limit your remarks to 3 minutes, and speak clearly into the microphone. I will now call the roll. Vice Chair Knuckles?
Here.
Commissioner Battaglia?
Here.
Commissioner Besser? Commissioner Cantor?
Here.
Commissioner Cerullo?
Here.
Commissioner Chen? Commissioner De La Us?
Here.
Commissioner Del Turo?
Here.
Commissioner Dweck? Commissioner Eady?
Here.
Commissioner Levin?
Here.
Commissioner Marin?
Here.
A quorum is present. The first item is the approval of the minutes of the regular meeting of Wednesday, February 5th, 2014.
On the minutes, all in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? The minutes are approved.
Scheduling. On calendar numbers 1 through 4, we have resolutions for adoption. Scheduling Wednesday, March 5th, 2014 for a public hearing to be held in Spector Hall, 22 Reade Street.
On the resolutions, all in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? The resolutions are adopted.
The next part of the calendar is the report section on page 4. Borough of the Bronx, calendar number 5, CD4 N140216HKX, in the matter of a communication regarding the landmark designation of the Bronx General Post Office. For a favorable report on calendar number 5, Vice Chair Knuckles.
Yes.
Commissioner Battaglia.
Yes.
Commissioner Besser. Commissioner Cantor.
Yes.
Commissioner Cerullo.
Yes.
Commissioner Chen. Commissioner De La Us.
Yes.
Commissioner Del Turo.
Yes.
Commissioner Dweck. Commissioner Eady.
Yes.
Commissioner Levin.
Here. Yes.
Commissioner Marin.
Yes.
A favorable report has been adopted on calendar number 5. Borough of Brooklyn, calendar number 6, CD9 C010421 MMK, in the matter of an application for an amendment to the city map concerning the St. John's Place Bridge. For a favorable report on calendar number 6, Vice Chair Knuckles.
Yes.
Commissioner Battaglia.
Yes.
Commissioner Cantor.
Yes.
Commissioner Cerullo.
Yes.
Commissioner Chen. Commissioner De La Us.
Yes.
Commissioner Del Turo.
Yes.
Commissioner Dweck. Commissioner Eady.
Yes.
Commissioner Levin.
Yes.
Commissioner Marin.
Yes.
A favorable report has been adopted on calendar number 6. Borough of Brooklyn, calendar number 7, CD9 C010345 MMK, in the matter of an application for an amendment to the city map concerning the Montgomery Street Bridge. For a favorable report on calendar number 7, Vice Chair Knuckles.
Yes.
Commissioner Battaglia.
Yes.
Commissioner Cantor. Commissioner Cerullo. Commissioner Chen. Commissioner De La Us. Commissioner Del Turo.
Yes.
Commissioner Dweck. Commissioner Eady.
Yes.
Commissioner Levin.
Yes.
Commissioner Marin.
Yes.
A favorable report has been adopted on calendar number 7. Borough of Brooklyn, calendar number 8, CD9 C010371 MMK, in the matter of an application for an amendment to the city map concerning the President Street Bridge. For a favorable report on calendar number 8, Vice Chair Knuckles.
Yes.
Commissioner Battaglia.
Yes.
Commissioner Cantor.
Yes.
Commissioner Cerullo. Commissioner Chen. Commissioner De La Us.
Yes.
Commissioner Del Turo.
Yes.
Commissioner Dweck. Commissioner Eady.
Yes.
Commissioner Levin.
Yes.
Commissioner Marin.
Yes.
A favorable report has been adopted on calendar number 8. Borough of Brooklyn, calendar number 9, CD9 C010415 MMK, in the matter of an application for an amendment to the city map concerning the Union Street Bridge. For a favorable report on calendar number 9, Vice Chair Knuckles.
Yes.
Commissioner Battaglia.
Yes.
Commissioner Cantor.
Yes.
Commissioner Cerullo. Commissioner Chen. Commissioner De La Us. Commissioner Del Turo.
Yes.
Commissioner Dweck. Commissioner Eady.
Yes.
Commissioner Levin.
Yes.
Commissioner Marin.
Yes.
A favorable report has been adopted on calendar number 9. Borough of Manhattan, calendar number 10, CD2, C140069, ZSM, in the matter of an application for the grant of a special permit concerning 110 Green Street. For a favorable report on calendar number 10, Vice Chair Knuckles.
Yes.
Commissioner Battaglia.
Yes.
Commissioner Cantor. Commissioner Cerullo. Commissioner Chen. Commissioner De La Us. Commissioner Del Turo.
Yes.
Commissioner Dweck. Commissioner Eady.
Yes.
Commissioner Levin.
Yes.
Commissioner Marin.
Yes.
A favorable report has been adopted on calendar number 10. Borough of Manhattan, calendar numbers 11 and 12. Calendar number 11, CD2, C140055, ZSM. Calendar number 12, C140056, ZSM. In the matter of applications for the grant of special permits concerning 688 Broadway. For favorable reports on calendar numbers 11 and 12. Vice Chair Knuckles?
Yes.
Commissioner Battaglia?
Yes.
Commissioner Cantor? Commissioner Cerullo? Commissioner Chen? Commissioner De La Use?
Yes.
Commissioner Del Turo?
Yes.
Commissioner Dweck? Commissioner Edie?
Yes.
Commissioner Levin?
Yes.
Commissioner Marin? Calendar number,
11 and 12.
excuse me. Calendar numbers 11 and 12 have been adopted. Borough of Manhattan, calendar number 13, CD2, N140213, HKM. In the matter of a communication regarding the landmark designation of the South Village Historic District on the adoption of calendar number 13 for referral to the City Council. Vice Chair Knuckles,
Yes.
Commissioner Battaglia,
Yes.
Commissioner Cantor, Commissioner Cerullo, Commissioner Chen, Commissioner De La Use,
Yes.
Commissioner Del Turo,
Yes.
Commissioner Dweck, Commissioner Edie,
Yes.
Commissioner Levin,
Yes.
Commissioner Marin.
Yes.
Calendar number 13 has been adopted. Borough of Staten Island, calendar number 14 concerning 266 West Service Road. This item is a chair certification. No action is required by the commission. Borough of Staten Island, calendar number 15, CD3, N140148, RCR, in the matter of an application for the grant of a certification concerning 228 Vineland Avenue. For adoption on calendar number 15, Vice Chair Knuckles,
Yes.
Commissioner Battaglia,
Yes.
Commissioner Cantor, Commissioner Cerullo, Commissioner Chen, Commissioner De La Use,
Yes.
Commissioner Del Turo,
Yes.
Commissioner Dweck, Commissioner Edie,
Yes.
Commissioner Levin,
Yes.
Commissioner Marin.
Yes.
Calendar number 15 has been adopted. Borough of Staten Island, calendar number 16, CD3, N140197, RCR, in the matter of an application for the grant of a certification concerning 207 Abutas Avenue. For adoption on calendar number 16, Vice Chair Knuckles,
Yes.
Commissioner Battaglia,
Yes.
Commissioner Cantor, Commissioner Cerullo, Commissioner Chen, Commissioner De La Use,
Yes.
Commissioner Del Turo,
Yes.
Commissioner Dweck, Commissioner Edie,
Yes.
Commissioner Levin,
Yes.
Commissioner Marin.
Yes.
Calendar number 16 has been adopted. Borough of Staten Island, calendar number 17, CD1, N130237, CMR, in the matter of an application for the grant of a certification concerning 15 Woodside Avenue. For adoption on calendar number 17, Vice Chair Knuckles,
Yes.
Commissioner Battaglia,
I'm going to make a few comments in the hope that my colleague, Commissioner Besser, will fly through the door. I don't think Commissioner Besser has ever missed a vote in her several years here, and I'm sure she's agonizing over her absence. That being said, particularly with regard to these last three items, Staten Island items, just to prolong the meeting, I vote yes.
Commissioner Cantor,
I didn't bring my filibuster book, so I will vote yes.
Commissioner Cerullo,
Slow appreciation. Sorry, I vote yes.
Commissioner Chen, Commissioner De La Use,
Yes.
Commissioner Del Turo,
Yes.
Commissioner Dweck, Commissioner Edie,
Yes.
Commissioner Levin,
Yes.
Commissioner Marin.
Yes.
Calendar number 17 has been adopted. The next part of the calendar is the public hearing section on page 30. Borough of Manhattan, calendar number 18, CD1, N140267, PXM. A public hearing in a matter of a notice of intent to acquire office space for use of property located at 123 Williams Street.
Stacy Bliagos.
Good morning, Vice Chair Knuckles and Commissioners of the City Planning Commission. My name is Stacy Bliagos, and I'm the Executive Director of Business Link. Business Link is currently located in leased space at 348 West 34th Street, and we're looking to relocate to the 6th floor space at 123 William Street. The 6th floor of 123 William Street is currently vacant. A little about my background. I'm an attorney working in an alternative legal career. I've experience in sales and recruiting, and I've worked in various professional staffing and recruiting agencies, as well as most recently New York Law School, where I was in charge of the law school's recruiting for students and graduates. I apply these professional recruiting skills to the candidates at HRA. Business Link is a division of the Family Independence Administration and the Office of Employment and Contracts within the Human Resources Administration. We provide a unique service within HRA. We function as a staffing agency for HRA candidates who receive public assistance. There are currently 41 HRA employees, including myself, working at Business Link. Business Link offers wage subsidy reimbursement programs to employers interested in hiring HRA candidates. We work with employers in facilitating pre-screenings, interviewing, customized recruitment, and testing services. At most, 5 to 10 representatives from potential employers and businesses currently visit Business Link daily to interview candidates. The type of employer representatives range from HR professionals to office managers to CFOs and owners of companies. Our goal to employers is to provide them with a diverse and customized recruiting service so that they can hire the best candidate or candidates for their company. Concurrently, we provide career counseling to all our HRA candidates, and these services include resume review, counseling on short-term and long-term career goals, as well as hold numerous career programming for them. The candidates at Business Link are interested in working and achieving self-sufficiency. They are ready to work when they seek our services. They arrive at Business Link between the hours of 9 a.m. and 5 p.m., and most candidates are dressed professionally or in business casual attire. They sign in with our receptionist and are immediately seen by a career counselor. The career counselor reviews their resume and refers them to various employers on job interviews throughout New York City. Sometimes, if the career counselor believes the candidate will benefit from some of our programming, we ask the candidate to attend one of our future programs. The programs we offer are also approximately 1 hour, and the candidates have already RSVP'd in advance that they will be attending. The whole process from beginning to end takes 1 hour. Business Link services and screens about 50 candidates daily, and our career counselors follow up with these candidates via phone to monitor their career progress. Business Link does not give out benefits, nor do we see candidates for appointments related to their benefits. The only reason candidates come to Business Link is to be interviewed and screened for open positions. For example, we have a screening this afternoon for an employer for about 7 positions, and we expect about 30 candidates to come, professionally dressed and ready to interview.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Bliagos. I think that's a very comprehensive description of the operation there. Are there any questions for Ms. Bliagos?
Thanks for being here. I'm just wondering, as part of moving to this location, did you or anyone from HRA personally sit down with folks from the community board to describe what was going on?
My understanding is that we did. My colleague was present at those hearings. I was not.
Any other questions for Ms. Bliagos? Thank you very much.
Thank you. Have a great day.
Fabian Feliciano, for questions only. Any questions for Mr. Feliciano? Is there something that you wanted to add to what was said? Okay.
For general support services, if you have any specific questions on the space.
Any questions for Mr. Feliciano? Thank you, sir. Jeff Condrat.
Vice Chair, Commissioners, Jeff Condrat from DCAS. I'm Assistant Commissioner there. I'm here to answer questions. I believe I can answer your question. I think it was December 4th that HRA met with the Community Board to describe their operations. And just to add to that, DCAS, one of my colleagues, Christopher Nesterchuk, met with the Community Board on January 27th before the City Planning Commission accepted this and scheduled a hearing.
Please.
In the resolution from the community board, they just expressed concern about concentration of city services, so perhaps it's actually a better question for DCAS than it is even for HRA. Has that come up in your ongoing conversations with the community board about siting of various city facilities?
It did. One of HRA's prime concerns was public transportation, an area where people could get, and you can understand that downtown Manhattan is probably the best subway nexus in the city, arguably. Midtown and Brooklyn, we did look at those sites too. We were negotiating for something in Midtown, and the landlord, not only was it a little expensive, but the landlord ended up not wanting to take this amount of traffic in his building. And we looked at something in downtown Brooklyn, but it was just that space didn't work.
Jeff, there are other city agencies in this location, are there not?
In 123 William Street?
Yeah.
No. But obviously...
State agencies?
State agencies, yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Public agencies, actually.
Public agencies.
Okay. Right, I
Across
know.
the street almost, yes.
What are some do you know the other state agencies that are?
No, I'm not familiar with what state agencies are there. We can probably get back to you if you'd need to.
Okay, I think we probably have them. Other questions for Jeff Conrad? Anna?
I guess continuing in that vein and separate from this office space, the growth of residential use in Lower Manhattan, is that posing a problem for the city as it tries to find office space?
It does make a little less of a market down here in downtown Manhattan for office space. We are a big user of office space in downtown Manhattan, but if you include this municipal building and things like that.
Right. I would think that there are some market challenges here.
There are. But downtown Manhattan still maintains a fairly decent rental cost for compared to Midtown. You may have read about some very high rents going to Midtown.
Mm-hmm.
Even downtown Brooklyn is pretty tight right now.
Okay. So this area does still work for...
It does, from a transportation standpoint, and from what I'm hearing from HRA, particularly from a transportation standpoint. It's, as I said before, the transportation is very good down.
Right, and you're still able to find space?
Yes, usually.
Despite the market pressure? Mm-hmm. Okay, thank you.
Any other questions for Jeff Conrad? Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Christopher Nesterchuk for questions. Questions? None, sir? Okay, you want to speak to your interaction with the community board?
Good morning, Mr. Vice Chairman and Commissioners. It was a very productive meeting. I met with them, I believe it was January 27th, and I think some of their concerns were how we address our property needs, and I walked them through a little bit of our internal process and our due diligence in identifying space, and the importance of, meeting program needs as well as meeting the fiduciary responsibilities we have as employees of the City of New York. So I addressed all those issues, and I believe it was a very positive meeting. So.
Okay, questions? Thank you, sir.
You're welcome.
Are there any other speakers on this item? If not, the hearing is closed.
Borough of Manhattan, calendar number 19, CD4, N140191, CRM. A public hearing in the matter of an application for an amendment of the zoning resolution concerning the Manhattan West text amendment.
Okay. Madam Secretary, please note that Commissioner Cerullo is recused. I almost forgot his name. Absolute recusal. I just went right out of my head. Yes. Okay, Sabrina Canner.
Good morning. I'm Sabrina Canner, Senior Vice President of Design and Construction for Brookfield Properties, speaking about our text amendment this morning. It's important to note that Brookfield is not seeking additional density or development rights with this text amendment. We're simply looking to expand and improve our public space. 2 years ago, we acquired 450 West 33rd Street, adjacent to Manhattan West. This acquisition provided an opportunity to deck over the Dyer Avenue entrance to Lincoln Tunnel and connect public spaces, allowing pedestrian passage through parks from 33rd Street at 9th Avenue to 31st Street and 10th Avenue. This text amendment formalizes that design idea. I'd like to speak briefly about Brookfield's development philosophy. We don't simply build buildings, we believe in placemaking. That is, whenever a site allows, we are committed to creating great public spaces that attract people and support a live, work, leisure community. This is something we have done globally, not only in the U.S. and Canada, but in Australia and London as well. So how do we do this? First, we retain world-class design consultants, such as James Corner, Field Operations, our landscape architect from Manhattan West, who has demonstrated insight and understanding of open spaces and how New Yorkers use them. They have a depth of experience in designing very successful public spaces, as evidenced by the much-loved High Line, just 1 block south of our Manhattan West site. Placemaking begins with great design and offers a variety of experiences and moments, from sanctuary to excitement to beauty. We believe Field Operations is best in class at creating such moments. Secondly, we have learned that great retail has real power to provide animation and excitement to public spaces. At Brookfield, we create a very considered merchandising plan and take a curated approach to the selection of our retailers. We are responsive to our customer base as it changes, as well as the types of retail provided by our neighbors, and we understand that successful retail evolves. If you're familiar with Brookfield Place downtown, you can see this in execution. Thirdly, Brookfield invests a great deal of time and focus on our arts and events program. We produce over 300 events per year across the U.S. We're well known here in New York for our 25-year-old program, as we provide over 100 events or performances per year at Brookfield Place World Financial Center downtown, ranging from music and dance performances to art and photo installations to film and drama to construction, a creative collection of sculptures engineered and assembled from canned food, which is then donated to New York's Hungry, a favorite among our school children. Brookfield has demonstrated this commitment to placemaking through our development of Brookfield Place in Toronto, Perth, our upcoming development of Brookfield Place Calgary, and our current redevelopment of World Financial Center Brookfield Place in Lower Manhattan. We take great pride in our placemaking and are excited about this neighborhood in particular, as we see it as sitting in the nexus of theater, visual arts, and sports events in Manhattan, and see great potential in partnering with this community on a great arts and events program. In summary, we respectfully request your support of this text amendment, as we feel it allows us to develop our next great place, Manhattan West.
Thank you, Ms. Canner. Questions? Anna?
Yes, thank you for coming. Thank you for figuring out how to deck over Dyer Avenue. That's just a fantastic development. We've just received this morning a letter from the Manhattan Borough President. I don't know if you've had a chance to see it, but it echoes some of the concerns that the Community Board raised. And I wanted to ask particularly, well, there are 3 points in there I wonder if you could address. One is the Community Board had an issue about the hours of operation for the open space. You're proposing, I think, pretty generous hours and the ability to close only in the wee hours of the night, which I think the Borough President is okay with, as long as you don't also have plans for gating off the open space.
And we do not.
And you do not. Okay. And then the next has to do with retail features. First, along the central open space and the desire not to have large retail operations. And then also what the streetscape treatment will be, hopefully with some retail on both 31st and 33rd, because those are kind of challenged architecturally. So if you could speak to both of those, I'd appreciate it.
Sure. So our streetscapes on 31st and 33rd Street, while we don't have a retail plan in place yet for those, we do anticipate some retail. Having said that, our residential tower on the southwest corner opens on directly to 31st Street, engaging the streetscape. On the north side, we have an expanded sidewalk of 15 feet, so welcoming pedestrians. And there again, by decking over Dyer, we create an at-grade access into the plaza directly from 33rd Street. So just in those fundamentals, we feel we're engaging the streetscape.
Okay. So you will be able, there's a grade change and then, you know, lots of engineering challenges, particularly on 31st Street, right?
Yes.
Will you be able to activate both of those sidewalks?
We believe we can, yes, by having the buildings directly engaged with those sidewalks and that streetscape. We think naturally that will occur.
Where are loading docks for,
There's-
I guess you have loading docks on both streets, right?
No, we actually were providing loading and parking beneath the deck, beneath the plaza. There's an entrance to loading and parking on 31st Street, but only one curb cut, and then all that occurs beneath
Wow, and so
Plaza.
that will serve 33rd Street as well?
as well.
Fantastic, okay. And how about the loading areas in 450, in the new 450 building, or the improved 450 building?
Most of those will remain day one. As we can, we will take some back and hopefully create retail.
That's a pretty intense level of activity there right now.
There is, and unfortunately, those are all promised by lease.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we are taking a couple back in the first phase, but that will be a work in progress over time.
Okay. And what kind of retail do you anticipate on the open space? Something on the open
I think initially we see food and beverage, only because we know that will succeed. We see a real need for that, and see that evolving as the neighborhood evolves. We'd like to bring in fashion. We'd like to see what the community needs. So it will be an evolving retail plan for sure.
Okay. Any large-scale retail?
None. The only one we're talking to potentially in 450 are grocery stores.
Thank you.
Other questions for Ms. Canner? Thank you. Keith O'Connor.
Good morning, Vice Chair Knuckles, Commissioners. My name is Keith O'Connor. I'm a principal at James Corner Field Operations. We're the landscape architects and urban designers that have been hired by Brookfield Properties to design the open space for Manhattan West project. I'm here today in support of the text amendment. The amendment not only provides for more than 2 acres of new public space in a neighborhood desperately needing public space, high-quality open space, but it also ensures an important urban connection and establishing a connection between Pennsylvania Station, Madison Square Garden, and over to Eastern and Western rail yards at 10th Avenue. The site, situated between 9th and 10th Avenues, between 31st and 33rd Street, forms a critical urban nexus and helps to achieve a long-held aspiration to extend 32nd Street further to the west. The text amendment ensures that diverse and varied public spaces will be well connected to each other and to the surrounding streets and sidewalks. It provides space to accommodate concerts, performances, and other arts and culture events, while ensuring that amenity-filled spaces will be available to the public on a daily basis. A generous entry plaza will be provided at the corner of 9th Avenue and 33rd Street, welcoming visitors, employees, and neighborhood residents. It will be active, animated, welcoming, provide a generous setting for a major commercial office tower, while providing intimate spaces for people to sit, eat, socialize. An art plaza at the corner of 9th Avenue and 31st Street will provide a gracious setting for a major piece of public art, while providing setting for another major commercial office tower. Broad terraces and generous seating steps will offer spaces for casual seating, take in views, or enjoy the sunshine. And the central plaza will provide more than an acre of lush plantings, large canopy trees, diverse understory plantings, and intimate spaces with social seating, great for eating lunch, reading a book, meeting a friend, or just relaxing. And among one of the most important aspects of the project is the Dyer Avenue platform, decking over Dyer Avenue and the Lincoln Tunnel approach, allowing for a seamless connection from 9th Avenue to the north to 33rd Street, to the south to 31st Street via a public stair and elevator, and then all the way to 10th Avenue via a passageway connection through the existing 450 West 33rd Street building. At the south end, the Dyer Avenue platform will have a spectacular magnolia grove and a bamboo court at the north end of 33rd. As landscape architects and urban designers, we at Field Operations are excited about the creation of more than 2 acres of new open space, the ability to deck over Dyer Avenue, the establishment of important pedestrian connections, and the opportunity to create a diverse and integrated set of public open spaces, richly planted, filled with amenities, and well connected to the surrounding neighborhood. I'm pleased to be here today in favor of this text amendment. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. O'Connor. Questions? Michelle.
I'm just wondering, one of the questions that came up and one of the big changes, really about the phasing of the provision of the open space as it relates to this, and it seems like you're probably pretty familiar with that. I'm just wondering if you could just walk us through briefly what it's intended to look like.
Well, in terms of the way that it actually gets constructed, that sequence actually hasn't been determined yet. What the text amendment does is it provides a provision where it can be implemented sequentially. So Brookfield is actually now literally building the deck over the rail yards. That'll take some time. And then what happens is there'll be an open space associated with each building. So as they come online in sequence, if the Northeast Tower is built, it would be the entry plaza. The Southeast Tower would be the art plaza. Some portion of the Dyer platform would go with the Southwest Residential Tower, et cetera.
Other questions for Mr. O'Connor? Thank you.
Thank you.
Jean Danielle Nolan.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Chair, and thank you, Commissioners. My name is Jean-Daniel Noland. I'm the Chair of the Hell's Kitchen Clinton Land Use and Zoning Committee of Manhattan Community Board 4, and I want to thank you for this opportunity. I'll try to be brief. The Board welcomes the increased public space that the approval of the proposed text amendments will provide. The Board fears, however, that the applicant's stated purpose of, quote, open spaces designed to greatly enhance the pedestrian environment, unquote, portends open space characteristic more of an Upper 6th Avenue pedestrian environment, rather than a public space worthy of the applicant's and the community's aspirations. We feel that public space should not be expanded solely to provide access corridors to retail venues. Look, the Winter Garden at Brookfield's World Financial Center is a beautiful and stirring example of what great public space can be, and the Board urges the applicant to create a similar great public space in our neighborhood. Now, we have 3 or 4 concerns, and you have them in the letter, and I'll briefly mention them. We are very pleased that the developer has voluntarily agreed to make 20% of the units that are low income permanently affordable. Permanent affordability helps to sustain the economic diversity of our community. We request that the developer embodies this commitment in a letter written to the City Council, and we also request that the developer make a written commitment to the Council that it will file a lower income housing plan with the NYC Department of Housing Preservation and Development by the end of the 3rd quarter of 2014. 2, finishes and fixtures. Now, the applicant has been unable to answer my very simple question and the Board's question, will the affordable units have finishes and fixtures of inferior quality in the affordable units compared to the market rate units? We would hope that a company in possession of a respected national and international reputation, not to mention respected assets, would wish to treat all renters in its residential units the same. No one in our city should be made to feel on a daily basis unworthy because they have an affordable apartment. The fixtures, the finishes in the affordable unit should be the same as the market rate units. 3, an open city. Commissioner Levin mentioned this. The Board fully understands the necessity of closing the public access areas for emergencies or repairs. Yes, you have to do that, but we do not believe that outside of these contingencies, open public access in our district, in the heart of a 24-hour city, should be closed to the people of New York. And 4th, the event space, no more than 12 private events a year, they've agreed, and all other events open to the public and free, and they've allowed us to participate in the selection process. Could I make one final sentence?
Conclude.
Thank you. We wish to thank the applicant for meeting with the Board over the years and for its good grace in hearing us out and listening to us, and we expect that they will continue to communicate with us, the Community Board, and the community, and be a valuable member of Hell's Kitchen in the future. Thank you, Mr. Vice Chair.
My question was going to be actually what you doubtlessly have conveyed your concerns around the open space design to Brookfield, and how would you characterize those discussions?
They've listened.
That's a start, right?
It's a start. It's very difficult to design an open space. You have so many considerations. You have safety, you have the pedestrians, you have everything. I don't feel that the pictures we have seen quite live up to the possibility of what they can achieve. And I know they want to.
Okay. Questions for Mr. Nolan? Anna? No? Angela? I didn't mean to be presumptuous. I just thought you might.
Good morning, Mr. Nolan.
Good morning.
You are very articulate, and I thank you for your comments.
You're welcome.
Could you elaborate a little bit on I think you said you wanted the applicant to submit to HPD a low-income affordable housing plan. Generally from CB4, and I think Commissioner Levin could attest to this, is we're asked that the income levels be a little more moderate as opposed to low. What are you asking for?
Well, here's the situation as I understand it, Commissioner, and forgive me if I read this. The project is located in the special Hudson Yards district, Farley Corridor, Subdistrict B, Central Block, Sub-Area B2. And in this sub-area, you cannot have, inclusionary housing is not allowed. So the applicant has agreed to do this voluntarily, but we need a commitment and we need a letter. And I think
And that I do understand. But the levels, are you asking for certain levels of
Well,
affordability?
generally we do, and generally we prefer moderate, low, moderate, and middle income at 80, 125, 165% of AMI if possible.
And I just want to echo your comments regarding similar materials, fixtures, hardware for the affordable units. I could imagine nothing less, and it would be good to see from the applicant such a commitment in writing.
I think so. I don't think it's a question of finances. If it were, I would understand.
I would agree with
you. You invite somebody to your home for dinner, you don't serve some people on china and the other people on paper plates. It's just not the way I was raised, and I don't think any of us were.
I agree.
Thank you.
Other questions for Mr. Nolan?
Just a follow-up. So has the applicant stated that they do not intend to use the same furniture and fixtures, or they just have not committed to it yet?
They are unable to answer the question.
Got it.
They will not answer the question. We've asked them several times, and they're unable to answer the question.
Thank you.
Other questions for Mr. Nolan? Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Chair.
For questions only, Ken Lowenstein. You want to speak, Ken?
Good morning, Mr. Vice Chair, Commissioners. My name is Ken Lowenstein. I'm from Holland and Knight. I'm Land Use Counsel for Brookfield. I want to respond to the questions that were just asked about the affordable housing. As was mentioned, Brookfield has voluntarily agreed to do 20% of the units as affordable. That building is still the residential building is still in the design process. So while it's easy to say that every fixture and finish should be exactly the same, until they know what they're designing, what they're building, to make an absolute commitment to that effect is just not practical at this time. So what we have said is that we will come back to the community board later this spring, June, July, when the building has been further designed. We hear the community board loud and clear, but the building is still being designed, and we are not at this point in a position to make any definitive commitments. But as I said, we hear the community loud and clear. We heard the commissioners, but at this point, the building is just not at that level of design. And I don't think the issue is, as Mr. Nolan phrased it, residential buildings, there are a wide range of finishes. You can range from the flooring to the kitchen cabinets. Finishes will be of high quality. Whether there'll be granite finishes, countertops in market rate, and less of finishes but of high quality in the market, affordable, is what we're talking about. We are not talking about paper plates and china here.
All right. Angela, and then Irwin.
Good morning, Ken.
Michelle.
Good morning.
It's always nice to see you.
Anna.
And I just want to say the operative words are high quality, and that's comforting.
I can assure you that.
I just want to go on record with that.
Hi, Ken. I'm not clear. I'm not clear as to why they can't make a generalized commitment, if that is indeed with the direction they want to go, that call it the cost, call it the quality, call it whatever, will be equivalent to what is being done in the market rate housing. I don't think anyone is asking whether it's going to be black granite, red granite, or white granite. I think the intent of the question is that there not be a very significant difference, if anything at all, between what is being provided in market rate or non-market rate. So without defining the items, going to buy a car. You promise me if we're going to buy a Cadillac, you're going to let me buy a Cadillac? Or am I going to end up buying a Ford? Now, you can make a pre-agreement as to that. They're not talking specifics.
Okay. Right.
I think I would, I think the best, what I would do is we'll discuss it with the client and we will get back to the staff and the commission.
Fair enough.
Yeah. Thank you.
Right. Okay, and we'll give everyone the opportunity to ask questions, but we should recognize that this particular matter, the question of fixtures, is not before the commission. But that said,
my question wasn't going to be about fixtures. I think we've spoken about that, and I think you've heard the concerns. It's really about the request from the community board about the possibility of the applicant being open to a range of incomes as part of the process. Have there been conversations with HPD about that or any of the other government agencies?
Not yet, but the programs for these kind of housing, there's two basically. There's the inclusionary housing, which has an 80% AMI maximum in this community. And there's the 421A program. The 421A limit is 60%. This is going to be a rental project. Tax exemptions are very important for rental projects. So, the programs really limit the options that are available on a project like this. And we don't set those rules, obviously.
And so you're not considering the HDC 50-30-20 product that is out there?
But they're considering a lot of options, and that's why. And there are different income limits, as you know, for that kind of program. But it depends on exactly how the project gets financed at this point.
Anna?
Yes. Thank you. I fully appreciate that this entire line of questioning is beyond the scope of this application. And I also really appreciate the applicant's willingness to commit to permanent affordability here. That's a very important step. But I'd like to ask about one of the additional recommendations, or I guess they strongly insist, I think that's more than a recommendation, that the affordable units not be segregated and that be distributed throughout the building. I would put that in the same category as the discussion about finishes, something that I think is truly important and that I hope the applicant can make a commitment to. We don't want these in a separate building. We don't want them around the corner. They need to be throughout the entire building.
They will be in the same building, distributed within the building, and there will not be a separate entrance.
Excellent. Thank you.
Other questions for Ken Lowenstein? Thank you. Henry Casso?
Mr. Vice Chairman, Commissioners, good morning. Thank you. Henry Casso. I work for Brookfield Properties. I oversee construction on site and ready to answer any questions regarding construction.
Questions for Mr. Casso regarding construction? Questions? Anna?
Over the course of the last few years, we've heard a lot of discussion about the challenges of building decks over rail yards for development of this scale, including from some of your predecessors. How does the deck here work? Are you building the entire deck and then the buildings, or is there going to be a phased aspect to it?
No, the plan is to complete the deck over the railroad and then go vertical with the towers. We expect to have our last portion of the deck in before the end of the year, and then there's several months after that what we call fit out, which will provide the ventilation and the lights for the environment we create below the platform.
Oh, and then you mentioned ventilation. How much ventilation is going to be required in the open space over the Dyer Avenue deck, portion of the deck?
The ventilation will be brought up to higher levels.
Oh, good.
And then ventilated at higher levels above the deck.
Okay, so you're not going to end up with pavilions or things sticking up in the open space to
No.
provide ventilation?
No.
Excellent. Thank you.
In terms of sequence, what's being built, constructed first? Is it the commercial or the retail, or the commercial or the residential, or is it simultaneous? How's that going?
Presently, it's the southwest corner, which is a residential tower, is what we foresee being the first building to go up on site.
Okay, thank you. Other questions for Mr. Casso?
Yep.
Oh, sorry.
But you're not going to build out 100% of the deck initially, are you?
100% of?
The deck, are you going to build that out initially?
Well,
or sequentially?
Initially, there's a platform which covers over the railroads. That will be 100% built.
Right.
The plaza, which is in the text amendment, that'll be built in sequence with the proportionate towers.
And the predominant reason is safety as well as use?
Correct.
Other questions? Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Sayer Schwartz-Trauber. Hope I said that right.
Good morning. I am Sayer Schwartz-Trauber, and I'm presenting this testimony on behalf of Assemblymember Richard Gottfried, State Senator Brad Hoylman, State Senator Adriano Espaillat, and City Council Member Corey Johnson. We collectively represent the Manhattan West Development site. We support the proposal by West 31st Street LLC and Brookfield Properties West 33rd Company to amend the Special Hudson Yards District. This text amendment would allow for the creation of a large open space available for public use. This text amendment is not required to implement the applicant's proposed development. Rather, they seek to modify the space to include gardens, plazas, terraces, and pathways, along with a deck over the existing Dyer Avenue between 31st and 33rd Streets to create a seamless public open space in place of the open-cut roadway. This amendment would also provide a waiver to the applicant to build the residential developments before the commercial components are built. We thank the applicant for voluntarily enrolling in the inclusionary housing program, which requires that 20% of the building's residential units be permanently affordable. Manhattan Community Board 4 submitted a thoughtful conditional approval of this proposed amendment on February 13th, and we seek to reinforce and highlight a few of the Community Board's conditions with our support. First, while we understand that this text amendment does not discuss or have an impact on the affordable housing component of the development project, with a shortage of affordable housing in our districts and in New York City at large, we ask the applicant to consider increasing the amount of affordable housing to more than the 20% proposed planned within the 800,000 square foot residential development. We also gratefully acknowledge the applicant's voluntary commitment to make this 20% permanently affordable. Second, we join the Community Board's request to ensure that affordable housing units are distributed equally on all floors of the building, entrances are the same, and finishes and fixtures are of the same quality regardless of the unit's designation. Third, we thank the applicants for creating what will be used as an open public space by residents of Hell's Kitchen, but in the effort to keep this space completely public, we ask that this space be open to the public 24 hours a day. The applicant's involvement with the Community Board has been robust and transparent, and we appreciate that outreach and cooperation. We ask that this cooperation continue and include the selection of public art and the development of public and private programs to take place in the plazas of this development. Again, we support this text amendment and encourage the applicant to incorporate all of Manhattan Community Board 4's recommendations. Thank you for considering our testimony.
Thank you, sir.
Any questions?
We don't normally give questions to representative speakers.
That's fine with me.
Thank you. Michael Sandler, Manhattan Borough President.
Good morning. My name is Michael Sandler, and I'm here on behalf of Borough President Gail Brewer to support Brookfield's application for a zoning text amendment. The proposed text amendment will alter the public access requirements, creating significantly more open space than existing regulations. This open space will be open to the sky rather than the covered passageway that is currently required. Space that is open to the sky is more inviting to passing pedestrians and is more easily recognized as public space. The project site sits between Hudson Yards and the rest of Midtown, between the area of our city that will see the most development over the next decade, and Penn Station, the region's largest transit hub. This location makes the project site a critical pedestrian artery, and the proposed new open spaces will go a long way towards making this stretch of Midtown navigable and pleasant. That said, the City Planning Commission must ensure that the proposed public space remains truly public in the long term. The applicant has put forward a very well-designed space and plans to create an environment similar to Brookfield's Winter Garden Atrium at the World Financial Center. Plans change, however, and we need to make sure that the zoning text reflects this well-thought-out plan, no matter who owns and manages the space. Section 9373 of the proposed zoning text mandates the minimum depth of retail spaces, but it does not include a maximum size of retail footprints, which leaves open the possibility of large chain stores and restaurants. The text should be altered to prevent these types of uses. Furthermore, the applicant's planned retail all faces inwards towards the central plaza. The Planning Commission should ensure that there are adequate protections in the altered text to prevent 31st and 33rd Streets from becoming blank facades. As has been discussed, the applicant plans to close the public spaces overnight, much like city parks. These plazas are not parks, however, and will sit at the center of a thriving 24-hour community. Allowing the applicant to control this private space is important, so rather than mandate open and closed hours, the City Planning Commission should alter the text to ensure that the space can never be physically closed off from the public. The applicant has committed to not doing this, but it should be reflected in the zoning text. This will allow pedestrians to pass through the space even after hours, while still allowing Brookfield to secure the space. Finally, though this application does not change the amount of residential space on the site, it does allow residential space to be built as the first phase of development. The applicant has announced their intention of using the inclusionary housing program or a different housing program, but there is no mechanism to enforce that commitment. As the committee board has suggested, the applicant should enter into a restrictive declaration to ensure that this program is used. Furthermore, as the CPC is currently adjusting the requirements of this sub-area, it should investigate whether more ambitious affordable housing targets would be appropriate at this site. The project being proposed, if altered to ensure true public access, retail diversity, and ambitious affordable housing goals, will be far superior to the project that could be built under the existing public access requirements. The proposed text amendment and certification to allow phased development are thus appropriate and beneficial to the community. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Sandler. Are there any other speakers on this item? Any other speakers on this item? If there is not, the hearing is closed.
Okay. Borough of Manhattan, calendar numbers 20, 21, and 22. Calendar number 20, CD8, C140157, ZSM. Calendar number 21, C140068, Triple M. Calendar number 22, C140068A, Triple M. A public hearing in the matter of applications for the grant of a special permit and amendments to the city map concerning the Rockefeller University expansion. Notice, a public hearing is also being held by the City Planning Commission in conjunction with the above view appearance to receive comments related to a draft environmental impact statement. This hearing is being held pursuant to the State Environmental Quality Review Act and the City Environmental Quality Review.
Okay, our usual process is to have speakers in favor and then speakers in opposition. As of right now, we only have one speaker in opposition, so I'm going to ask that speaker, Maurice Hausner, or Marisay Hausner, to come forward, and then we will hear speakers in favor.
Good morning, Vice Chairman Knuckles and Commissioners. My name is Maris Hausner, and I'm with the Green Park Gardeners of New York City. I represent a group of volunteers at Andrew Haswell Green Park, located on the East River Esplanade, north of the Queensboro Bridge. As longtime East 60s and East 50s residents, we are keenly aware of the lack of open space in this area, which the Partnerships for Parks Open Space Index identified as having the lowest amount of open space per person in New York City. As an open space offering a place to connect to the natural rhythms of the sky and the water, to enjoy views of the city and the river, and to actively walk, run, and bike. The Esplanade, adjacent to the Rockefeller campus, has been a refuge for us and for thousands of others who use it year-round. In fact, using Rockefeller's own sampling figures, we estimate that the Esplanade by the project area has as many as 19,000 to 26,000 visitors weekly. We are appalled by the lack of sensitivity of the Rockefeller University to the true value of this open space to our community. The reality is that this project will wall off a sunny open section of the Esplanade between 64th and 68th, replacing views of open sky and a rich urban landscape with a 66-foot-tall fortress-like structure. The effect is amplified by its connection to existing medical structures over the FDR at 64th and between 68th and 71st Streets. The end result will be over a third of a mile of dark tunnels, giant pylons, and towering walls adjacent to the Esplanade. In the DEIS, Rockefeller has repeatedly ignored the Esplanade's integration with the surrounding neighborhood by choosing to define the community as either its own campus and or only the area west of York Avenue. And it has repeatedly ignored the spirit of the city's waterfront revitalization plan by insisting that the project is not even on the waterfront. This position is only true in the most literal sense because the project happens to be separated from the waters of the East River by the narrow Esplanade. In spite of our respect for the university, we do not support the project in its current design. We believe that the mitigation offered is not in proportion to what Rockefeller stands to gain in new private open space and private amenities, and what the community stands to lose. However, we do advocate modifying the project. We believe it would be appropriate for Rockefeller to make a strip along the eastern edge of their new platform publicly accessible. This should allow them to preserve the traditional seclusion of their campus while also honoring the spirit of the waterfront revitalization plan by offering new open space to a neighborhood which will otherwise see its waterfront open space irretrievably diminished. This would be a win-win for both Rockefeller and the neighborhood. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Hausner. Questions for Ms. Hausner?
Hi, thank you for being here. I'm wondering if could you indicate where you're recommending that open space be provided based on the drawings that are there?
There's I can't actually. Okay. That is so not what I do.
Okay. Sorry to have asked you then. Maybe just repeat that sentence about where you thought the open space might be helpful. Yeah, is it at ground level?
It's the eastern edge of their new platform.
The eastern edge of their new
platform.
platform.
On
top of the building. It's part of a public garden or a private garden that they're planning.
I see. Okay, thank you very much.
Other questions for Ms. Hausner?
Have you spoken to the university about your suggestions?
We attended several CB8 meetings, and we voiced our concerns. Mr. Wiest of the CB8 board was kind enough to extend an invitation to attend a charrette on Thursday, which we will be doing.
Right. And this is on the raised platform you mentioned, this area that you'd like to include in the open space?
Yes.
And how would you access it from the...
That's not my end of the canoe, but they've got superb designers and architects. I'm sure it could be handled.
Thank you. Thank you so much for your comment.
Thank you, Jim. Thank you.
Other questions for Ms. Hausner? Thank you. Okay, now we'll go to speakers in favor. The first of whom will be Mark Tessier-Lavigne.
Thank you very much, Vice Chair Knuckles, members of the Commission. My name is Mark Tessier-Lavigne. I'm president of the Rockefeller University. We're looking to build a new laboratory facility, and I'd like to thank you for the opportunity to present it. In my remarks, I'd like to provide some background and context for the project, then hand over to the next speakers who will describe it in detail. And if you don't mind, perhaps we can come back to the previous speakers' points when we've gone through all of that, because you'll have the full context there for the discussion.
Is that next speaker Jay Bargman?
That's correct.
Good.
So just by way of background, Rockefeller University is a world-leading research and educational institution founded in 1901 that's highly focused. We just focus on biomedical research, and we're just a graduate school. Only 8 PhD students. Compared to other universities, we're relatively small, about 1,800 people on campus, 1,200 of whom are scientists, with the scientists organized around about 70 laboratories, each headed by a professor who directs their research. Now, despite its small size, and this is our calling card, Rockefeller has been one of the most successful, if not the most successful, biomedical research institute in the world, with an unparalleled record of scientific accomplishment by any measure, including the fact that we've had more Nobel Prizes in medicine and chemistry than any other institution in the world, more than Harvard, more than Stanford, more than MIT, more than most countries. In fact, if we were a country, we'd be number 4 after the US, Britain, and Germany, and ahead of France. We've had more Nobel Prizes than all of France. Now, the success of our approach, which has been consistent for 100 years, is to work aggressively to recruit the very best scientists, provide them with highly interdisciplinary, free-flowing environment that encourages them to interact across boundaries and disciplines. Our scientists focus on the most intractable diseases, including cancer and diabetes and Alzheimer's disease. But beyond that, we have a large impact on our local community. We're proud to have been part of the Upper East Side community for over 100 years. A large fraction of our employees live within blocks of the campus and shop locally and send their kids to local schools. In fact, 55 of our 70 lab heads walk to work, so we're a local university. We have an operating budget of about $300 million annually, supported by federal research grants, other research grants and philanthropy that gets pumped into the local economy. Beyond research, as part of our core educational mission, we bring local high school students as well as high school teachers to campus to provide them with laboratory experience and scientific training. We welcome the public to our campus every week. During the academic year, we have concerts and lectures and other events that are open to the public. We play also a very active leadership role with the city and other institutions in building up the biotechnology sector in New York, trying to stimulate the creation of new, well-paying jobs for our citizens. Now, to maintain its success, the university has to work hard year in and year out to attract and retain the very best scientists in the world. And to do this, we have to be able to offer world-class laboratories that meet or exceed the standards of competing institutions across the country and abroad. What top scientists are looking for today are state-of-the-art laboratories that maximize opportunities for collaboration through large floor plates and adjacencies of lab space that enable open exchange of information and ideas. So it's vital for us to renew our aging lab stock and develop new lab space to meet contemporary standards. And if I may just make one additional comment, I want to stress that the university intends to keep the number of researchers and staff at current levels. This is not an expansion project. It's a lab renewal project to bring our labs up to current standards to maintain our competitive edge. Jay Bargman will discuss the building design and master plan in more detail, but I'd be happy to take questions as well.
Thank you, Mr. Levine. Questions? Angela, and then
Good morning, Mr. Levine. Thank you for your presentation. It is impressive. All the Nobel Peace Prizes that your university has. No, not peace, Nobel. Excuse me. Peace would be good. So I know that the university accommodated very many of the community board's requests or recommendations, and many of which were in our purview, and there are a few that really aren't, but I may as well ask the question anyway. So the community was asking that perhaps some of your special events bring in the public. You talked about the public school coming in, and that part of the campus perhaps be open to the public. Can you comment on those?
Right. So we do welcome the public to the campus, as I've already mentioned. We have regular concerts, we have lectures, we have other events. We do that currently during the academic year. With this new project, actually a space has been designed that will enable us to extend those programs into the summer months as well, and we've made the commitment to the community board and the borough president that we will expand our projects to enable the public to come more frequently. In terms of the overall structure of the university, the space is accounted for programmatically, and we can't carve out space, but we deal with the issue by providing access to the campus for these events that occur, as I said, regularly.
So use of the swimming pool, for example, the fitness center, would that be open to the public?
Well, the fitness center is sized for the university community, so it really couldn't accommodate. Yeah, it's a small facility.
Thank you.
Commissioner De La Hoz.
Thank you for being here and for sharing a bit more about the university. I'm just wondering, the lab renewal project versus an expansion project, Based on the trends that are going on in higher education at this point in time, specifically as it relates to research, do you anticipate this will take care of the university's needs for the next 10, 20 years?
Yeah, we think of it as 20 to 30 years. That should be sufficient for our needs.
Other questions? Mr. Del Toro.
Thank you, Mr. Levine. I certainly do appreciate that the concept of the university as this free-floating environment that encourages collaboration. As we all know, that's really very, very important, especially in higher education. However, as the other commissioners have said, there is a conflict between the community that sees your beautiful campus and their lack of open space. And now I gather that the campus is open only for special events, but it is not. For example, if somebody wanted to walk into your beautiful campus and have lunch and sit on a bench, they could not do that, could they?
Well, they could do that in association with a special event. So, for example, for the concerts, we have them at noon, and then the people are welcome to stay, have lunch in our facilities, and hang around the campus until about 3 o'clock in the afternoon. So it isn't just come in and leave. We do invite them to enjoy the environment more. Doing that on a daily basis would wreck the tight community of faculty. And again, when we think about the secret sauce that makes a small institution like this function at the highest levels, that is one of the key elements of the secret sauce, the fact that the faculty have this tight, knit community, interdisciplinary community that enables the people to come together and the sparks to fly. In terms of the community as well, we're committed to, and you'll hear about this more from Jay Barkman, to enhancing the Esplanade, and we look forward to working with the community on making the most of that, the Esplanade area, which we think is a wonderful resource for the Upper East Side as well. And we're committing significant resources to do that as well.
Yes, I understand that. I understand why. But wrecking is a very strong term. However, for example, Columbia University, where you can walk through the campus, and so it doesn't seem to impede with the collaboration of people. Although it is a massive institution, I understand it's really not comparing apples to apples. But I do think that in view of your philosophy, the outcome then is that whether it's good or bad, and I'm not making any value judgment here, but the community will see an exclusive institution, seeing itself as exclusive from itself. And so that's never very good, as we know. And so the question is how do you find a way of working with the community at the same time respecting the interests and the philosophy of Rockefeller University?
Well, I should say that so two responses. One, you take a place like Columbia University. First, as you say yourself, it's much larger. Mm-hmm. They have security that is greatly in excess of 10 times the amount of security that we have on our campus. They also have a lockdown situation where all buildings are locked down and people have to walk in with key cards. It creates a very different kind of culture. And, just to point to the facts, we've had approximately, a larger number of Nobel Prizes than they have, even though our faculty are probably 1/10 of theirs. Mm-hmm. So,
well, I don't know.
Again,
I have a degree from Columbia. So
and I was a postdoctoral fellow at Columbia, so I love the institution, but it just shows you the importance of culture. To get to the point of the community, I think, in fact, Rockefeller is very well liked in the community. We have a lot of support. The community board voted overwhelmingly in favor of this plan, including a request that we expand the programs that we have for access to the public, which we're very happy to satisfy. So, and we have many people have spoken up on behalf of the university. So I acknowledge that some people would like more, but I think if you survey the population nearby, you would find that the vast majority actually believe that the university is a good citizen, a good member of the community. And we'd like to enhance that even further through expansion of the programs that we know work well and that are compatible with safety and security on campus, the campus culture, but also bringing our university to the public.
Thank you very much.
Orlando?
Sylvain, good morning, and thank you. The events that you're saying that are open to the public, how often those occur?
So every week, currently during the academic year, which is September to June, roughly speaking, we have events. We have a Friday concert every week, and that's one very popular with seniors in our community, actually, who come. Our auditorium, Casper Auditorium, can take about 450 people. The auditorium is pretty much every week packed with local community members. Many of those then stay on campus to have lunch in our facilities and enjoy the facilities that are there. We have public lectures. Those aren't as frequent. They aren't every week, but certainly every month we have a public lecture, evening lectures. We have some during the day, and then we have special events as well. We've been working on building up additional special events. Some of them are targeted at high school students. Some of them are targeted at the public in general. And again, we're looking forward with this new campus. There's a space in the new design where we will be able to extend our winter program of concerts into the summer to accommodate people and open up our doors in the summer months as well, which currently we don't really have many things planned. So that's a commitment on our part.
Would that be the involvement and use of the amphitheater?
That's correct.
Because that was my question yesterday. And can you point to us where the auditorium is?
Yeah, the existing auditorium is here.
Okay. Correct.
This is Casper Auditorium, which is great in the winter, but when the sun is out and during the temperate months, using this amphitheater here will be a much nicer venue for this.
Thank you.
Commissioner Del Toro.
Just to follow up on that, so you said that the seniors, when they come in, but you said that a number of seniors come into the special events, and then you said that they were welcome to enjoy the grounds. Are they welcome to just go anywhere, or is there an area specified?
Right. So when they currently come in, they use the Casper Auditorium here. They continue. We have a dining hall here. That's when it's warm. They're welcome to use this area around here. We do ask them to remain in this general area and leave the campus. It's all about maintaining the safety and security of the campus, which is a biomedical research campus.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
Other questions for Mr. Levine? Commissioner Chen.
Sorry, at the risk of sounding a little repetitive, it sounds as though, do you check identification when people come in and out of the various gates? And then this decision to have the public-private boundary at that point rather than at the door of each building, is that somehow tied to the nature of the research that's done there and security?
That's right. It's these research laboratories are very hazardous, and all of our employees, before they can work there, have to be trained, receive special training, and it's just the nature of the work. I mean, nothing out of the ordinary. It's just part of the kind of business that's involved in biomedical research. And so we can't have people, near the laboratories in any way for those reasons. Yeah.
Other questions for Mr. Levine? Commissioner Cantor.
Mr. Levine, you have an extraordinarily beautiful campus. I had the privilege of working on the Howard Hughes building many, many years ago, as well as Hospital for Special Surgery, so I know a little bit about the waterfront. With your proposal, do you have private access to the roof along the waterfront, but not public access to that roof?
Correct.
You've made
we would open it up during events. The whole idea in the summer is to have concerts and other events here. Frankly, we're quite excited to extend it beyond concerts. It'd be a great place to have plays, for example, if you think of Shakespeare in the Park, to open that up and then make it accessible that way.
Understanding your concern about the integrity of the community, your community, won't the security needs that you would have by opening that to the public periodically be similar, although obviously of greater length, than if you had it open to the public on a year-round basis?
Not at all. And unfortunately, we'd have to have a massive expansion of security. For these events, we corral a number of our security guards to come, for example, when we have the concerts and lectures. And they sort of line the path in an inconspicuous way. We want people to feel welcome, not excluded. But we couldn't, to have that there permanently, day in, day out, would require a massive expansion of our security force and would change the character of the community.
Do you have, well, I'll ask you this question, but I suspect that you'll pass it off to Jay. Do you have the opportunity to create a, I don't want to use the word zone, but a limited access to that roof for the public from the street on a year-round basis?
That would be very difficult in terms of the infrastructure, the security, and so on that required. Again, it would alter the campus character. The other thing I should point out is making that space available on a periodic basis is very compatible with the concept of the open interactions of our faculty and bringing them together. A key part of this plan is actually to bring together our eating facilities into this facility here. So that we bring the campus together. We're very divided. There's a north campus and a south campus. What this building does is it unites the campus, brings it together, and by bringing the eating facilities here today, there, this will be the space where people will converge. We think we can multiply the interactions that we already have and enhance the community. If you start carving out a big bunch of this for the public, then that's lost. So it's not I think the previous speaker used the win-win situation. It would be a win-lose. It would really dramatically impair a major feature of the programmatic concept behind this building.
Thank you.
Other questions for Mr. Levine? Thank you.
Thank you.
Jay Bargman.
Good morning. My name is Jay Bargman. I'm a partner at Raphael Vignoli Architects, and we're the architects for the Rockefeller University project. To follow on from what the President said, the mission was to provide state-of-the-art research space that promotes collaboration. And to do that, for the laboratory part of the project, we're proposing a two-story building that runs from 64th to 68th Street. The reason for doing that is threefold. Two of them having to do with research. A two-story building with a large floor plate is the most flexible in terms of subdividing as researchers reconfigure their science or the size of their teams. And it also allows the building to connect all of the existing buildings on campus, both laboratory buildings and office buildings, as well as tie into the university's utility system, which has a tunnel that runs from the south to the north end of the campus. And then the third reason for the two-story profile is that the roof of the proposed building aligns with the elevation of the campus, so that the campus continues onto the green roof, which means that from York Avenue, the project has no impact on the community in the sense of being a visible presence. And then from the east, the project establishes a base and integrates the campus and gives Rockefeller an identity from north to south. But it doesn't obscure the significant buildings that have been built there over the last 100 years. So we think that it presents a image of unity, but it has diversity of architecture and function. We already spoke about the amphitheater and the dining hall, which are located on the roof of the building. And, the amphitheater focuses on Welch Hall, which is a significant piece of architecture on campus and can be accessed from the main entrance. Control access, welcoming the community in up the main entrance of the campus while still maintaining security. The culture of the campus we did talk about, and maintaining an openness and tying all the buildings together either through outdoor space or this new lab building is central to the university's mission. We're going to talk a little bit about the Esplanade design. We have a few panels for that. I'll make the transition to Heather Berman, who's from Matthews Nielsen, who's a landscape architect, by saying that we think that the proposed schedule for the construction is about 4.5 years, starting in 2015 and opening in 2019, mid-2019. Through all that period, the Esplanade will be maintained open with public access, so that the construction of the building will have no impact on the use of the Esplanade.
Okay, why don't we stop there and you can take questions.
Sure.
Let me just ask, where will be the staging area for the construction of the of the building?
Good question. For the first phase of construction is 4 months, and it will be rebuilding the seawall at the Esplanade, which has deteriorated over the last 70 years since it was built. First 4 months are from the water, and then there's about 26 more months where the superstructure will be put in place, which is a prefabricated steel structure that will be brought up the East River on barges and lifted over the FDR and dropped into place. So that construction will have impact on the river, and we will be closing the FDR for Sunday nights for about 13 nights, something like that, while these prefabricated pieces are hoisted into place. And then after that's done, the rest of the construction is staged from this platform, and the fit out of the building will be accessed from York Avenue with all of the staging on the roof of the structure that we've put in place.
Will that be in the middle of the night or what, in the evenings, 2 a.m.?
Yeah,
That's what I have my wife out there.
We have low noise. We've studied the traffic. We've made sure that we'll have minimal impact on the community. And by using the East River, of course, for at least half the construction, you have zero impact on the traffic or on pedestrian flow.
Okay, questions for Mr. Bargman? Commissioner Dweck.
Besides the 13 nights, what other impact on the FDR what is there going to be?
There's no other impact on traffic flow on the FDR. All of the construction takes place above it. We have the 10 columns that occupy about 10 square feet each that sit on the eastern edge of the FDR outside of the roadway.
Thank you.
Those are precast columns. They won't be poured.
Structural steel columns encased in concrete with crash barriers to prevent any damage from a car collision.
During the night.
Other questions for Mr. Bargman? Commissioner De La Luz.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Hi, Mr. Barber. Are there any plans for any signage on the structure at all?
The only discussion on signage is for donor recognition. All of the financing for the project will be from private fundraising, and so like any university, there may be signage on the buildings recognizing a donor.
How might that be visible to the public?
We really haven't discussed that. Typically, that signage is rather low scale and associated with the entrance to a building. At least that's our experience at other campuses, and it's currently that way at Rockefeller. I think there is a sign that's identifying Rockefeller University on the south end of the tower there, but there are no definite plans.
Just one.
Commissioner Cantor.
Jay, question. Is the edge of the Esplanade, is that bulkhead or a pierhead?
It's a gravity retaining
No,
wall.
no. In terms of intrusion, is it a bulkhead line or a pierhead line?
I believe it's a bulkhead line. I'm not exactly sure of the distinction there.
You can build out beyond the bulkhead. You can't build out beyond the.
We're not intending to build out beyond the bulkhead, and I don't think that we would be permitted to without.
Then it's probably a pierhead as well. Okay. Then you'd have to go back to the Corps of Engineers.
Our enhancement of the Esplanade is to add benches and planting and lighting and drinking fountains and irrigation, and that's all within the footprint of the existing Esplanade.
Okay.
Commissioner Chen.
So just wanted to ask about the Esplanade. I know there's some support columns that come down that are briefing materials that they protrude like an inch into the Esplanade. Is there any other space being
The only space that
taken
we're
away
taking from the Esplanade are these 10 column locations, which are, we've minimized the intrusion of the columns, and they are about 3 foot square, where they sit on driven piles that go to rock.
Other questions for Mr. Other questions for Mr. Other questions?
That was his telephone asking the question.
Commissioner Del Toro.
Regarding the Esplanade again, Ms. Hausner mentioned the shadows, the impact of the shadows in the Esplanade. Can you please talk about that?
Their building does cast additional shadows on the Esplanade, and in my opinion, rather minimal. It's all documented in the EIS. In the winter months, when you really do want the sun is already low in the sky, and the shadows from the existing campus. This is the edge of the stone wall. That's the existing campus, and then the buildings. Those are already casting shadows in the afternoon during the winter, so there's no appreciable increase of shadows during the winter. There is some increase of shadows in the summer. We recognize that, but we've spent a lot of time on campus, and in the summer months, people on this part of the Esplanade tend to look for shade when they sit in the benches. So we're putting trees and benches along the edge of the water and viewing locations, and we hope that will make it a more accommodating place for more functions like cycling and sitting and conversations.
Thank you.
Other questions for Mr. Bargman? Thank you.
Thank you. So
Heather Furman.
Good afternoon. My name is Heather Furman. I am the project manager. I'm from Matthews Nielsen Landscape Architects, and we're involved working alongside of Raphael Vignoli's office, developing both the green roof top and also the Esplanade. I'm going to speak to you about the Esplanade design a little bit further. So as Jay mentioned, we are working with both the Parks Department, City Planning, and also Community Board 8 to develop an enhancement for the existing Esplanade that runs adjacent to the new proposed building. We are looking to use, we're not extending out into the water line in any way, but we are looking to really enhance the experience of the users by using resiliency planting and accommodating for the different, somewhat harsh microclimate that's here along this edge, and really just, if I can go over to the plan. We are accommodating, this is a mapped greenway bike system, so we're accommodating both bike riders and also pedestrians, which is a little tricky in some of the more narrow areas. But we have been able to develop a plan that keeps pedestrians separate from bikers, which we feel is really important. We've given a continuous pedestrian lane that starts on the north end, and then they sort of are able to start coming into this wider area, which allows for a different experience. They can come to the edge, have a seat, sit underneath some nice plantings, and then continue on their way, but staying out of the bike lane specifically. And we're also, as part of this, as Jay mentioned, we are also looking to reconstruct the bulkhead, which is currently failing. So that's also part of this effort. We have a community board design charrette that's scheduled for tomorrow evening. My understanding is we have several members of the community board and from the community who will be joining us. We're really in the conceptual stage, so we're looking for their input and feedback to really sort of develop a concrete plan for this segment.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Furman. Any questions for Ms. Furman? Commissioner Levin.
Yes, thank you. You know, everything looks much better when we're not I want to thank you all for the opportunity to have visited the campus. I may have been one of the few who actually made it there.
In the snowstorm.
I think we learned that day how visiting the snow is actually not really so wonderful. But anyway, there's indication in the environmental report that the Esplanade plan will be completed, further mitigations will be figured out by the time this land use review process is going to be complete. How is that going to match up with the charrette process and the community designing process? When is the design for this going to be finished? And if it's not finished by the time we have to act, how much of it then will be sort of embodied in our work?
Sure. So What we've developed so far has been reviewed alongside of Parks Department and City Planning. A number of the agencies have, we've really worked closely with them. What we're looking to do with the community is to really understand, based on some of the community board meetings that we went to, really understand, how they want to experience the Esplanade. There are certain elements that have to be accommodated. One is the bikeway system. It is a mapped DOT greenway. So to really just get a sense of what the community is looking for and how we would be able to sort of tweak this conceptual design. One of the things that we have developed further from feedback from the community is raising the crash wall with the sound barrier. So we've looked to increase the height of that. And also really just, make it as comfortable as a space as possible. I mean, they're the ones that are going to be using it. They're the ones who use it now and have experience with, north and south of our exact area. So that's what we're looking to do in terms of getting, just sort of really developing and kind of fleshing out, what they think would be helpful for this area.
So do you anticipate that there will be further design work that can be shown to the commission before we vote? So I guess that's maybe a month or so, or 6 weeks from now. I'm not exactly sure when. Or are you involved in a longer planning process than that?
We want to keep the community involved as we go through the process. We feel that's really important. In terms of being able to develop things further for the commission, I don't know that we'd be able to do that at this time, but we really want to make sure the community is involved in the process.
Okay. So then 2 more questions about the Esplanade. One, perhaps a detail, I don't know, but the community board had a recommendation about looking into the availability of water.
And irrigation.
In irrigation, could you?
Yes. So
is that a big deal, or is it feasible? What's it going to do?
Yes, we're studying that now. We believe we are able to make a connection, and we're giving. Right now, we're showing on the plan 10 different irrigation. They're called quick couplers. Basically, they're an in-ground frost-proof hydrant that can be attached into so that the water can be distributed to the different planters. We've got them currently 100 feet on center throughout the site.
Okay.
And we do think it's important, yes.
Okay.
Plants need water.
So then I guess that leads to my last question, which is about how challenging this landscaping will be to maintain. Okay. It's one thing to build these wonderful spaces, but we know as time goes by, if you don't give the proper attention to maintaining them, it's like it wasn't there in the first place. So
absolutely.
How much effort will it take to maintain it? Are you choosing plantings that can be ignored?
Not ignored, but we are looking.
Low maintenance.
That's the term, low maintenance.
Take care of themselves.
Yes. So, and usually what happens in the typical maintenance plan, and we can speak to this further. Usually what happens is after we're done, we've completed a project, the plantings are in, the contractor, the landscape contractor who's installed the planting typically takes on a 2-year warranty period. And that allows the plants to establish or not establish, and then also the warranty means they get replaced if they don't quite make it. Rockefeller is looking to extend the maintenance of the planting, and we are looking to use plant material that will be specific to this microclimate, that can take, a little bit of inundation of water, a little bit of dry time, some shade, all the different kind of components that are going to happen along this edge. So we are looking to specifically use plant material that will thrive in this environment.
Thank you.
I just wanted to ask you, on the rendering, between the columns and behind the botany, what kind of physical impediment is there between the highway and?
It's a crash barrier, and then we're
barrier.
extending it up to provide a sound barrier as well.
Okay.
We're at 8 feet currently.
Now, that would only be on the west side. On the east side, you'd have a separate crash barrier. You won't be extending that up, will you?
On this
yes. Face, on the
yes.
east face.
Yes.
On this side, this is the side that's going to have the crash barrier. And the FDR is behind that.
What is the value of extending it up in terms of sound attenuation?
I could have someone to give you a little bit more information from AKRF, Steve Rosen.
No, you're scheduled to speak, sir. Yeah.
He can speak to it a little bit further, but our understanding is that we're able to reduce the impact of sound along that edge.
Okay, other questions for Ms. Furman? Thank you.
Thanks.
Robert Cook?
Vice Chair Knuckles, Commissioners, I'm Bob Cook, Land Use Counsel to the University, and I'm just going to briefly describe the actions that are in front of the Commission regarding this project. The first one is a special permit pursuant to Section 74-682 of the zoning resolution, which is a provision that applies specifically to the air rights developments over the drive. And this includes a request for a rear yard waiver, which in this case is kind of redundant because the rear yard in effect extends out all the way over the East River, so there is plenty of light and air provided to the university, the building, by that space. There's also a change in the city map to demap the column volumes that will be coming down on the east side of the FDR drive, and you've heard the description of the extent of those columns. And actually, there was an original mapping application, and we are now amending it because the column volumes will actually get smaller. Originally, the columns, I can't show it here, but the columns were V's. They're now made into Y's, so the space that's occupied on the ground level is smaller. The next action is a modification of the university's previously approved large-scale community facility development plan, and that's because we are increasing the lot coverage and the floor area on the campus. The floor area still goes to just 33% of what's permitted, and the lot coverage goes from about 30% now to about 42% of a permitted 65%. Lastly, there are two approvals pursuant to the 1973 agreement. They both relate to the placement of columns and the development of the Esplanade. Questions?
Thank you, Mr. Cook. Questions? Commissioner Cantor.
Mr. Cook, could you amplify about the request to eliminate the column in terms of, I assume that's in terms of FAR?
We're eliminating space within the FDR Drive Esplanade to accommodate the columns.
Okay, but it has nothing to do with building FAR, structure?
No.
Okay.
No. Any platform that's built over the drive does not count as lot area for the purpose of computing FAR.
I was just concerned about other implications on other sites. Okay, thank you.
Welcome.
Other questions for Mr. Cook? Anna, I'm sorry.
Mr. Cook, I have a question about the extent of the maintenance obligation for the Esplanade. I believe it was raised by the community board and certainly also by the borough president. It has to do with the period of time over which Rockefeller will be required to fund the maintenance. And I guess I should also, what is the anticipated maintenance commitment and how will it be implemented?
Well, for the moment, it's the university has agreed to the maintenance of the planting for 4 years. We are in discussions and exploring the issue of what happens beyond that. We're in discussions with the Parks Department. One of the questions is, what is the entity that can receive the money and how can we be assured that it gets spent here? And the other question is the monetary amount of the commitment.
So it's anticipated that Rockefeller's requirement would be to fund maintenance, but not necessarily to carry it out themselves.
Correct. For those first 4 years, I believe it would be the universities, they would hire a landscape contractor to maintain.
As part of the construction process that Ms. Furman described. They plant it, they guarantee it, they take care of it.
Yes, and those guarantees are, as I understand it, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think they ordinarily run 2 years.
Okay. Well, I realize that this is mostly the Parks Department's business. They have jurisdiction over this, but I think this is our opportunity to be sure that what gets built as fantastic public space continues to be fantastic public space. And I would hope that in the course of this, there could be a much longer-term commitment to support of this space, because it's being done in mitigation of the shadow that that the new building is going to cast over the Esplanade. That shadow is going to be there in perpetuity. I would think that the funding ought to be there, some measure of the funding ought to be there in perpetuity. And it also, I think Rockefeller has a fantastic track record of maintaining excellent open space on its own campus. So maybe there's an in-kind opportunity here rather than just a funding opportunity, but sort of goes beyond my... Then I would add the fact that now it's great that you've figured out how to provide irrigation to the area. That's coming from the Rockefeller campus, I imagine. So there really is a very concrete tie between the maintenance of Rockefeller's own property and maintenance of this.
Actually, I believe there's a pipe in there already.
So there is.
They're only, the question is, I believe, that whether there's adequate pressure to run it all the way to from the south end where it originates up to the north end.
Oh, good. Thank you.
Other questions for Mr. Cook, Robert Cook? Thank you. George Candler.
Mr. Vice Chairman, Commissioners, I'm George Candler. I'm the Associate Vice President of Planning and Construction at Rockefeller. I'm here to answer questions.
Questions for Mr. Candler? Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Stephen Rosen.
Hi, I'm Steve Rosen from AKRF. We prepared the environmental impact statement. Let me just answer the question about the barrier. We originally proposed in the draft EIS a 5-foot barrier. There's currently a 2.5-foot Jersey barrier that separates the Esplanade from besides a fence that separates the Esplanade from the highway. The community board came back and asked us to raise the height of that barrier so that they could get a more appreciable reduction in noise levels. We proposed raising it to 8 feet, which results in a reduction on the Esplanade of between roughly 3 and 6 dBA in noise. 5 dBA is a readily noticeable decrease in change. 3 dBA.
And what material is this? What material is the barrier?
I don't think we've yet selected the materials for the barrier. I assume it could be. I assume it could be a concrete or type of material.
Okay, I'm sorry. Go ahead. Continue.
But the 8 foot allows also for good circulation of air, and probably winds up causing some slight reduction in terms of pollutant levels as the pollutants are sort of diffused over the people on the Esplanade coming off the highway. If there are any other questions on the environmental impact statement, I'd be happy to answer them.
Commissioner Dweck.
Just a question on the barrier. The barrier's purpose is to attenuate sound, or it's to also be a crash barrier?
Well, all you need is probably a 2.5-foot barrier similar to what's there from a safety standpoint. So the increase in height is really for sound attenuation.
Got it. Thank you.
Other questions for Mr. Rosen? Commissioner De La Hoz.
Mr. Rosen, just does it also, raising the barrier, does it at all trigger any additional requirement for venting?
No. The height of the platform is roughly 18 feet above the roadway, so it leaves 10 feet. We've had air quality studies that looked at really a worst case condition when there was stalled traffic to make sure that people that are using the highway are not asphyxiated or have any adverse health effects, and we have plenty of air circulation with a 10-foot opening.
Other questions? Commissioner Del Toro.
Again, on the barrier, the discussion before was that the change from the V to the Y so that there would be less space taken on the ground surface. What if the barrier is raised to 8 feet? I mean, looking from, let's say, from the other side, what is it? Across the East River.
Roosevelt Island. Yeah.
Roosevelt Island. If the barrier is high, that really changes the visual impact, doesn't it? Because it would look
Roosevelt Island,
like a wall, more like a.
Of course, the driver shouldn't be.
No, I'm not talking about the drivers.
Right.
I'm just talking about how you would receive it from.
well, I mean, the barrier, an 8-foot barrier, people on the Esplanade would have less of a view of the schist wall now with the 8-foot barrier. But there's always a trade-off with a barrier in terms of visual versus the sound attenuation, and the sound quality is going to be readily quiet, really noticeably quieter on the Esplanade.
It would be good to have a drawing to see what the difference would be between the 5-foot and the 8-foot. Is it is it perceptible?
Sure, we could prepare that sort of drawing.
Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Cantor?
No, I was just thinking, I would imagine that the barrier is going to be west of the face of the column so that the experience of the column will still be there?
That's correct.
Okay.
Other questions? Thank you. Timothy O'Connor.
Hello, my name is Timothy O'Connor. I'm at Rockefeller University, the Vice President for University Strategy and Research Operations, and I'm just here for questions.
Are you responsible for the Nobel Prize winner?
Have you won any?
Is this on the record?
Questions for Mr. O'Connor? Thank you. Michael Sandler.
Morning, my name is Michael Sandler, and I'm here on behalf of Borough President Gail Brewer. Rockefeller University has been an important research institution in our city for over a century, bringing medical breakthroughs to the global community and jobs and research funding to our local community. Rather than put forward a plan to develop as much floor area as possible on their site, the university has left open much of its campus and has concentrated its bulk away from its neighbors across York Avenue. The proposed new laboratory building will add a state-of-the-art research center to the Rockefeller University campus without increasing the user population of the university or encroaching on nearby residential uses. First, the proposed project meets the findings for the special permit for development over a street. As such, the proposed modification of the large-scale community facility development plan and certification for column placement are appropriate. The second certification, pursuant to Articles 12B and 12C of the 1973 agreement, requires that the university submit plans for environmental impact mitigation. The proposed laboratory building creates an unmitigatable significant adverse impact on open space because of the building's shadows. The university is committed to redesign the East River Esplanade adjacent to the site and to rebuild the deteriorating seawall on this stretch of the East River as partial mitigation. Additionally, the applicant has agreed with the community board to schedule more public events on campus and has worked with the Borough President's Office to create an open campus program on Friday afternoons during the warm months. These efforts go a long way towards mitigating the open space impact of the project, but the university should do more to be a good neighbor to the community that is particularly starved of open space. The university has large green areas on its campus that are inaccessible to the community. There are legitimate reasons for a closed campus, but the university should explore where the campus fence can be moved to create open space on the periphery of its land. In addition to these efforts, the university needs to solidify its commitments to the community before final project approval. The university is committed to a public design process for the Esplanade, and for a financial contribution to ongoing maintenance. This design process should be undertaken now, and the financial commitment needs to be made far more specific. Other than this unavoidable open space impact, however, this is a terrific project that will help the university stay competitive and continue to engage in important life-saving research. Having such a prestigious biomedical institution in our city is a true asset, and the City Planning Commission should approve this project in order to further the long-term goals of this important institution. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Sandler. Are there any other speakers on this item? Any other speakers on this item? The record will remain open in this matter for 10 days until Monday, March 3rd, in order to receive written testimony on the draft environmental impact statement. Madam Secretary, is there any other business before the Commission?
No, Vice Chair.
If not, the meeting is adjourned.